Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled Cumberland County's Opioid Response, the Collaborative Efforts of the Cumberland-Fayetteville Opioid Response Team. I'm Samantha Tillman with the Health Ed Division of the Cumberland County Department of Public Health. And today we have with us 4 panelists. We have Mr. Charlton Roberson, Tara Tucker, Mr. Lewis Leak, and Mr. Greg Berry. So in this learning session, you will hear from 4 C-Fort partners providing services in Cumberland County. The Cumberland-Fayetteville Opioid Response Team, or C-Fort for short, is a coalition of community stakeholders invested in improving Cumberland County's opioid response. C-Fort achieves this through strategies that use a collaborative approach to activities that include access to substance use disorder treatment, health care, health screenings, testing, harm reduction, medically assisted treatment, housing, a post-overdose response team, law enforcement assisted diversion, jail services, social workers, and more. Data trends show that thousands of people are affected by opioid use in our county, and this learning session will give residents a chance to learn more about this important issue in our community. If anytime you have a question, please type your question into the Q&A box, and towards the end, we will get to it. So please, guests, if you could introduce yourself, including your title, organizational affiliation, and a brief description of your organization and services, please starting with Mr. Berry.
So my name is Greg Berry. I am the project coordinator for the Cumberland-Fayetteville Opioid Response Team, which, as you heard in the introduction, is a community coalition, which is led by the health department and is comprised of community stakeholders from government agencies to nonprofit to treatment to individuals that are part of the meeting and that arrive in their own individual capacities.
My name is Tara Tucker. I'm a community paramedic with Cape Fear Valley's Local Integrated Health, part of their community paramedic program. And we serve people with mental health and substance use disorders since the behavioral health system is so complex.
My name is Lewis Leak. I am the clinic director of Carolina Treatment Center. We are a medication-assisted recovery treatment facility, and we are currently the 2nd largest opioid treatment program in North Carolina. We are partnered in a lot of different areas within the community. C-Fort is primarily the one that we are in partnership with at this time.
I'm Charlton Roberson, and I'm the Eastern Regional Coordinator with the North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition, a grassroots organization that seeks to mitigate harm and improve public health through harm reduction philosophies.
Thank you so much for being here. So I do have some prepared questions just so we can get a feel for what C-Fort is doing. So Lewis, as you often do at C-Fort meetings, can you provide some data on the current state of the opioid crisis, both locally and on the state level?
Okay, so I want to preface the information that I'm going to share with you that one, this is only individuals who are actually taken to the emergency room department. And so I want you to keep that in mind because it doesn't account for the number of individuals who may experience an overdose and don't seek assistance or any other type of help. This information is public, and you can find it on the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Injury and Violence Prevention website. But for Cumberland County, what we are seeing year to date, the numbers are staying about the same. We're at 128 reported emergency department overdoses from the beginning of this year to where we are currently. Additionally, those are the same numbers that we had last year at the same time. So we don't really see a decrease happening currently. And over the state of North Carolina itself, we're already trending up. We're looking at 811 overdoses for the state in comparison to 788 overdoses that reported to the ED as well. Also, keep in mind here in Cumberland County, 60% of those individuals that overdosed and reported to the ED are from the ages of 25 to 44. And we're also noticing trending up in the Black and Brown communities, as well as experiencing overdoses more so than when the crisis first began. And so we're looking at that. And then there's additional information, especially when it comes to the county. 322 individuals have experienced some type of overdose and reported to the ED in this past year so far. And those individuals have experienced overdoses from not only opioids, but other medications and other drugs that have been found to be some type of addiction. And so the numbers are constantly going up, and even for the state, that number has risen as well. The one thing that we have to keep in mind with these overdoses is that 61% of those individuals that have overdosed in a private residence, 13% overdosed in some type of service area, i.e. a gas station, another 11% overdosed in or on the highway or in a vehicle or some other type of transport, and then 3% in public buildings. And so we're keeping an eye on those kind of numbers because it's really going to tell us where we have to direct most of our help at. And so with that, those are the stats for Cumberland and the state.
Oh, thank you. Charlton, what does the North Carolina harm reduction data tell us about overdoses in our community?
Well, the data that we collect through our syringe exchange program and post overdose response, just to mirror, the county numbers and the state numbers. Here in Cumberland County, year to date, we've had over 2,800 contacts as far as with our syringe exchange program, and out of those contacts, we've distributed 3,300 Narcan kits, which resulted in 1,202 peer-to-peer overdose reversals. Those are reversals that's not reported by the state numbers. Those are reversals that are reported to us directly from individuals who we serve in syringe exchange programs. We've also handed out 78 xylazine kits, and I know Louis mentioned about the other adulterants that may be in the drugs. We've confirmed that, over 95% of our local drug supply has been, is positive for xylazine, which is a sedative in our local drug supply that has a dependent, its own level of dependence. We've also, in harm reduction, we've also made over 1,100 referrals, which resulted in 91 warm handoffs. Now, warm handoffs would be low barrier access to care. Through our partnerships and coalition building, we've been able to partner with infectious disease doctors and other medical and health professionals to be able to lower the barriers to care for some of our people who may be experiencing opioid use disorder.
Thank you. So now that we have an idea of how widespread this crisis is, Greg, what type of strategies are being used in the community to respond?
So there are many strategies that are being implemented in the community to respond to this opioid crisis. One of them in and of itself is C4 by itself is a strategy because it brings together community partners in a way where they can work collaboratively, share information, share resources, plan together, and bringing all of these folks from public health, public safety, the treatment sector, nonprofits, all together at a table to be able to look at the data, formulate plans to respond, build community collaborations. In and of itself, C4 itself is an important strategy. It's in the community to respond to the opioid crisis. But in addition to that, and Charlton touched on quite a few services that are offered in the community as strategies to either mitigate or reduce the risk. But any comprehensive strategy that we're going to use to address opioid use or misuse is going to have to include treatment, prevention, recovery, and the harm reduction parameters. And so some of the partners that are a part of C4 specialize in prevention. For instance, that might look like medication take-ups or handing out medication disposal bags that people can use to dispose of old medication, or providing individuals with lock boxes, or doing drug education around overdose prevention and educating folks about the risks, or treatment strategies like getting people connected to medicated assisted treatment, or getting folks into detox centers or into recovery housing. The recovery component, C4 has really played a huge role in getting smart recovery support groups up and running all across the county. There are, I think, 5 groups that meet regularly throughout Cumberland County that provide support groups for folks that are in recovery. And then the harm reduction initiatives that include everything from post-overdose follow-ups to law enforcement diversion to divert low-level drug offenders, folks that have issues with addiction, out of the criminal justice system into community-based supports. So there are quite a few strategies that are happening right now in the community, and a lot of these collaborations and bringing folks together is happening at C4.
Perfect. Tara, what is EMS doing in regards to post-overdose response?
So with post-overdose response, we're creating that team effort with other community partners, and we're able to generate a list of our calls related to overdoses, and go out and follow up with these folks, offer them things like harm reduction, things that Greg was talking about, offer treatment, recovery resources once they move past that treatment phase. So it really is meeting people where they are out in our community, and giving them some opportunity to take advantage of resources, to give them some hope. Our team, in addition to the paramedics, also has social workers and a peer support specialist. I think peer support is a huge piece of post-overdose response. So that's why we partner with NC Harm Reduction, again, to offer those peer supports and other resources. It really takes all of us working together.
Thank you. Charlton, could you explain what harm reduction is?
Well, harm reduction is a philosophy, a public health philosophy that strives to meet individuals where they are despite the complexity of their condition. You know, I like to say that harm reduction thrives in the pre-contemplation stage of change, where, you know, individuals may or may not be looking to make a change from their, at-risk behavior, or whether it's sex work, chaotic drug use. And what we try to do is address those individuals and minimize or mitigate the harm that they're doing to themselves and the community, and, offer them options. We don't take a judgmental approach. We believe that individuals have the autonomy to make decisions about their drug use, their body, as they please, but we just try to provide them with options to assist them with staying alive. Harm reduction kind of thrives in the nuanced arena of substance use, like, post-overdose response. Greg mentioned LEAD, helping people understand that, the difference in tolerance, like when someone's incarcerated and they're released from incarceration, how their tolerance levels may drop. And also understanding what, through partnerships with, for instance, the North Carolina Chapel Hill Street Drug Lab, being able to test drugs and find out what adulterants are in the drugs, local drug supply, and educate people on, so they can make educated choices about their drug use, educated choices about their health. And also, once those choices are made, to kind of facilitate those choices and mitigate the harm that are caused by some of the negative choices that they make.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Lewis, what is MAT?
Well, MAT is an acronym for medication assisted treatment. It's a term that's used by most addiction professionals that actually discuss a combination of using medication as well as a comprehensive counseling or behavior therapy approach. Now, the one thing about medication assisted treatment is the medication, when it's talked about, can be used for more than just one type of substance use disorder. So there medication assisted treatment for those who have alcohol use disorders. There is medication that is used to assist individuals who have opioid use disorders. And there are a lot of other medications that are in its trial phase now for other stimulant use as well. And so the biggest thing about medication assisted treatment is one of the things that I tell individuals who come in, it's this: the medication makes you feel better, but it doesn't make you think better. So the medication that is given allows that person to not experience the cravings, the withdrawals, or those things that would cause them to lapse or relapse. It allows their brains to settle down enough to actually start to listen. But sometimes people will get stuck on just the medication and feel better and go about their normal life, but forget about the things that actually got them in the situation that they were in. And so that's where that comprehensive approach with counseling, mostly cognitive behavior therapy, comes into play. So that they build those recovery skills and tools that's needed in order for them to be able to eventually taper off the medication altogether and go about a regular life of recovery.
Okay, perfect. Tara, can you explain how some community paramedic programs are able to do community induction of MOUD in the community, and tell us if that is something we might see in Cumberland County?
Sure. So MOUD is medications for opiate use disorder. Like Lewis was mentioning, there's 3 FDA regulated medications in particular for opiate use disorder. So some community paramedic programs are doing what we call inductions out in the field. And for that to happen, medical director basically writes a protocol, gets it approved through the state office of EMS, and then it's a matter of training staff on how to carry out that protocol. A big key piece in that is having partners out in the community to link folks to. And I think that's a huge part of having a successful program, because not one program is right for everybody. People's insurance makes a difference, the other requirements, you know, if they have to go to group every week, if they have individual therapy, those other pieces of MAT, like Lewis was mentioned, make a difference for folks. As far as Cumberland County, it is something that we're actively in the process right now of working on. We're starting to have the discussions about our protocol, starting to talk to those community partners so that we'll have the linkage there. EMS really just wants to be the bridge, right? And one of the things that Charlton mentioned earlier was low barrier access to treatment. That's what we want to be. We want to be able to get people started in a quicker manner and get them connected over to a program. Because when people are ready to make that change, you have to strike right then and help them when they're ready to make that change. Having appointments weeks later doesn't always work for folks. So
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
And with paramedics, they will take it out daily. So it's not that we give people a big supply of medication.
Okay. Okay, so now we've heard about MOUD and we've heard about MAT. Lewis, is there a distinction between the two?
Well, there is. Again, MAT, medication assisted treatment, is that comprehensive approach. MOUD, the medications for opioid use disorder, is simply just that, medications that are issued to an individual. And so we were talking earlier about, lowering barriers to treatment. MOUD is one of those ways that those barriers are being lowered. Once upon a time, physicians who wanted to prescribe medications for opioid use disorders had to have a specific type of license in order to be able to do that. That is no longer the case. Now, doctors can prescribe those medications for individuals that are, general doctors. Your primary care physician can now prescribe those medications, with the exception of methadone, can prescribe those medications for someone who is in need of some type of medical treatment using MOUD. And so with the medication assisted treatment, again, there's a requirement that comes along with that has to do with the counseling component. I will say that any good physician would know that along with prescribing, they would try to also connect those individuals with some type of counseling or some type of therapy to be coupled with that to have a more successful outcome. Again, when we're talking about the two, MAT is really that broad umbrella for all of it, and the medications for opioid use disorder is really that tool that a lot more physicians now have until they can make that connection with maybe a therapist or counseling to help that person that may be in immediate need.
Okay. We've talked a lot about how partnerships are really important. Tara, what do you think of the partnerships in Cumberland County, and how do you utilize those partners as a community paramedic?
So for community paramedics, partnerships are the heart of our work. I think in Cumberland, we have a lot of good community partners. You're seeing just a few of them at the table that we use. The way that we do linkage, a lot of it is phone calls. Sometimes we take some of our community partners out with us on some of these particular calls so that we can work together to address needs. We talk a lot about what's called social determinants of health, all the other things that people need, whether that's accessing healthcare, whether it's accessing a dentist, housing. I mean, people have so many other needs, and that's what we find out when we go out and do this work, especially in post-overdose response. And so then it's a matter of phone call and coordinating who's going to do what. The partners here are very willing to work together. And through the partnerships, we can see more people and make better use of our resources. Again, we just want to be that bridge to help people get connected to the pieces, overcome those barriers that stop people from getting treatment. Sometimes that's transportation, sometimes it's childcare. So figuring out, what we need to do for people. And again, our partnerships are really key. We have some great partners in Cumberland County.
So earlier, Charlton talked about xylazine. So Greg, can you tell us about the presence of xylazine in the community and how Seafort partners are responding to that?
Yeah, so xylazine is a very dangerous adulterant that has made its way into not only the drug supply in Cumberland County, but all across the state, and even other states around the country are seeing it. We noticed almost 2 years ago when it started to make its way into our community. Some of the telltale signs of xylazine being in the drug supply shows up on people who use drugs in the form of skin ulcers that appear like on their arms, legs, feet, and hands. Xylazine is a animal tranquilizer. It's used in veterinary medicine to sedate animals like prior to surgery. And it's been used, as far as we know, probably for 10 to 15 years as an adulterant in fentanyl supplies, primarily in Philadelphia and in Puerto Rico. The reason it started making its way into the drug supplies because fentanyl has the effects of fentanyl don't last as long as, say, the effects of heroin. They're more intense and they last less, whereas heroin is less intense and lasts a little longer. And so the xylazine started to make its way into, basically they built a concoction that gives the instant intense feelings of fentanyl with like the added duration of that experience lasting because of the set of effects of the xylazine. However, the xylazine is it's a very dangerous drug that has a lot of other increased risk, not just the skin ulcer, the ulcers that appear as a result of using the drug, But also the fact that xylazine, since it's a sedative, is resistant to naloxone, which is the reversal agent that people use to reverse an opioid overdose. And so, being that it's mixed into the drug supply, it is showing a relationship in the increase in fatal overdoses because, again, naloxone doesn't work to reverse the effects of xylazine. So we've known xylazine has been in Cumberland County for at least 2 years. Some of the early detection was a collaboration between North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition and the UNC Street Drug Lab, which has a mass spectrometer at their research facility there at UNC, and samples were collected in Cumberland County from Hope Mills to Bragg Boulevard to Highway 53 to areas off of Rayford Road. And every sample that was collected, it was sent into the state, has came back positive for xylazine. And so at this point, every sample tested has came back positive. So that's 100% of what's been tested. And so again, this drug is mixed in primarily with fentanyl, but it shows up in other drugs as well. And another very important risk I think that is important to make the community aware of is, since it's a sedative, when someone ingests it, oftentimes they lose consciousness and they can't remember what happened while they were using the drug. And so that puts people at high risk of assault and things like that. And so, yeah, it's a very dangerous drug and it's showing up all over the place. And we, often tell folks that right now the drug markets are so unpredictable and so uncertain that counterfeit drugs and drugs that have been mixed with other drugs and are being sold as something that is now pretty much what's to be expected. And so some of the ways that we can respond to that, some of the ways that we have been responding to that is through, of course, through monitoring the supply. And so by getting some of those samples sent in and getting them analyzed to see what's in those substances so that we can produce informational material to put out to the community and make people aware, the people who are using these drugs, make them aware of what's in them. We also utilize point of contact testing, which are tests that not only for xylazine, but also for fentanyl that can be used in the community at the point where before someone prepares the substance to use it, they can test it to see if these dangerous chemicals are inside of that. And some other ways that we've responded to xylazine, as I've mentioned earlier, xylazine causes some very horrific and grotesque wounds, these ulcers that appear on folks. And we've been able to coordinate with some C4 partners. Goshen Medical Clinic, shout out to Goshen, agreed to collaborate with Carolina Treatment Center and North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition to host bi-weekly mobile medical unit at the Carolina Treatment Site bi-weekly to help provide wound debridement and wound care for folks that are suffering from some of these wounds. And so from trying to get some partners, some collaborations going with partners that can utilize their different services together in like an outreach activity, to monitoring these drugs that are in the community, to handing out test kits to folks, to providing information. These are like various strategies that we are using to combat this threat, basically.
Perfect. Thank you. Charlton, can you describe the demographics of the people you serve and identify whether there is a particular group or groups that are at the highest risks?
Yeah, the demographics of the people that we serve within CHRC is varied. I think Lewis mentioned before earlier between the ages of 25 and 44, white females are the lion's share of our participants that we like to call, but we are seeing an increase in the Black and Brown community of accessing harm reduction and an increase in overdoses as well. So all demographics access our services. The people that we find that are most at risk are the people who are less likely to access our services. And in my experience, those are the people that are traditionally underserved because of their reluctance to use the available services that put them most at risk. Another population that's at risk are people who are newly released from incarceration. Those individuals are at risk as well, and individuals who are support, like for instance, individuals who are living in areas where drug use is normalized. That's the new breeding ground. That's where areas of prevention can be more impactful because those are the new breeding grounds for people who may be future opioid users and they become dependent on these drugs and whatnot. Yeah.
Greg, how is C4 working with other partners, specifically ones that are receiving opioid settlement funds to combat the opioid crisis?
So, C4 is a community coalition. It's open to the whole community. We invite everyone to participate, specifically organizations or entities that are receiving opioid settlement funds. Part of that requirement to apply and receive those funds is their willingness to participate in C4. And so when we look at how all of our partners are working together, it's important to take into consideration that we have to have this holistic approach to how we respond. I mentioned earlier, we have the treatment portion of it, we have the prevention portion of it, we have the recovery portion of it, and we have this harm reduction, and all of it works together. And we're looking at people holistically and recognizing that for some folks, the assistance that they need might be something to eat, might be somewhere to lay their head tonight, might be getting them connected to medical care or health care. And so focusing on the areas where folks have needs and looking at them holistically and trying to improve their wellness in these increments and partnering with organizations that bring all those different aspects to the table. It could be, something, it could be faith, it could be food, it could be a recovery support group like Smart Recovery, it could be medicated assisted treatment. So it's all of these different partners. Everyone brings an important part to the table when we look at people holistically, and the needs that each individual has is different than the next because everyone is a unique individual. And so we have to treat people as unique individuals. And so one of the beautiful things about our collaborations, is that all of our partners come to the table and bring resources to the table, and then we can collaborate and work collectively to bring those services out.
Can I add to that?
Yes, sir.
In listening to what Greg has said, I think it's really important to know that we sitting at this table is a very small representation of what C4 is. I will tell you that I have been with C4 since its inception, and I will tell you that the collaboration that goes on now within C4 has absolutely affected this community in Cumberland County. We have done more things together than we could have possibly have done in our own silos. And I am telling you that if someone wants to be a part of C4 that can bring something to the table that's going to make our community not only safer, but make our community healthier, we welcome you. Because this group of people, we don't walk around going, I. It's always about we. And so after listening to what Greg has said, I'm telling you, we are making a difference.
Yes.
There is no one walking around with no personal agenda. There's one agenda at C4, and that's to make the community safer and healthy.
Perfect. Thank
Yes.
you. And we've heard a lot of great things about partnerships and what organizations are doing. But Lewis, can you tell us what families could do that are worried about their loved ones and want to give them help?
You know, when I heard this question, there's 7 points I'm going to make. I'm going to try to make it real quick,
Okay.
but there's 7 points I want to make. The first is educate yourself. If you believe that a loved one is struggling with some type of substance use disorder, educate yourself on that substance use disorder. Know what it is that they're experiencing, so you can have a better understanding of how to address it. So that would be the number one thing: educate yourself. Best place to go to do that: morepowerfulnc.org. That is a great website that has been set up, that's been established, that can answer a whole lot of your questions that probably we couldn't do in one setting. So morepowerfulnc.org would be my recommendation. Learn more about opioid use disorders and get connected with other services for other substance use disorders as well. The second point would be communication and empathy. When we're talking about communication, it's about how we're talking to that individual. Are we always angry? Are we always upset with them? Are we always accusing them? It's about the language in which we use. Once I'm educated, I have a better understanding of what this person is going through, so I can communicate empathy a little bit more. Instead of using you statements, turn it around and start using I statements. I'm very afraid every time you leave this house that you may not return. I am very afraid that instead of hearing a key coming through the door with you returning, that I'm going to hear a knock at the door, someone telling me some bad news about you. So using I statements when we're communicating with individuals, it's going to be probably the best approach, allowing them to know how you're feeling versus telling them what they're making you feel like. That's just a different subject matter and a different approach to doing that. The third thing that I would say, encourage treatment. Now, when you go to talk to someone about treatment, they're probably not going to want to hear it. So what are some strategies that you can put in place? You can go around to these different treatment sites, download some information, maybe lay it around the house. Allow this person to pick it up when they're in the bathroom and kind of read it over. Have them move from that pre-contemplation state to contemplating, maybe considering treatment. And so sometimes it's just about gathering the information and letting them to do some self-discovery and believing that, you know what, maybe I do have a problem. And so when we're talking about encouraging treatment, we're talking about just getting the information there, allowing them to know, hey, anytime you're ready, let me know, because I've done my homework, meaning that you educated yourself. I've done my homework, and anytime you're ready, I have some choices and some options for you. That's the best approach. Having those options, giving the person the choice. Do you want to go try outpatient? Do you want to try inpatient? I will tell you, most individuals don't want to get locked down into an inpatient, even though it's probably the best thing for them. But as long as I have another option to try, I might be able to attempt that. The fourth thing is create a supportive environment. And so when I say that, if you already have substances in your house, listen, different medications also provide fixes even when someone is sick or ill from some type of substance use disorder. So locking up your medications and making sure that, you know what, hey, if I know this person is struggling, I'm not going to take my medication in front of them and watch me as I take something that's prescribed for me. Or maybe I don't drink as often in front of that person because I don't want to become a trigger to them to want to go and feel something as well. So coming up with that supportive environment may mean that you have to make some changes in how you do some things in your home as well. And then the other one, number 5, is to encourage them to participate in support groups or other therapies like Smart Recovery, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so getting them to engage in maybe some things that are out there with individuals who are going through the same struggles as them, who understand them a little bit better and might be able to partner with them, being a sober coach or being a sponsor, finding someone who can help them along that path of recovery. Number 6, offering emotional support. So we need to understand that recovery is a challenging process, but it is a process. You have to remember your person didn't get broke overnight. They're not going to get fixed overnight. And so there was a process to the addiction. There's a process to them getting well. And so being able to make sure that you're there emotionally for them to continue to encourage them. Hey, if that person only had one day where they didn't use a substance, you celebrate that. You tell them how proud you are of them so that one day can turn into 2 days, that can turn into 10 days, that can turn into 100 days. And so that's one of the other things. But then this last point is what's really important. Self-care on your part. Because you have gone through a lot with this individual as well. And so maybe you need to go to an R&R meeting or an Al-Anon meeting, depending on what the need is. Find yourself a support group so that you don't end up becoming codependent on that person. Because some codependencies will help that person continue to use their substances because you don't want to see them miserable. And so all of those things kind of wear on you. Guilt starts to wear on you. Did you cause this? And so self-care is really important. Making sure that you're there to watch the process of their recovery without having a nervous breakdown or without having to see someone yourself. And so again, I would encourage you to find a support group, someone or an entity that you can go to, that you can lean on, and not become so codependent with that person that literally the life gets sucked out of you as well. And so those would be my 7 points.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all of that.
Samantha, could we also maybe direct folks to the C4 website? We have a resource guide link on there. People can get familiar with local resources in the community. There's a list in our C4 guide that's on the Cumberland Fayetteville Opioid Response Team webpage.
Yeah, so we can definitely put that. We can send that information out to people who registered, just some information with websites. Do we have any questions that came up?
We don't have any questions right now in the Q&A, but we did have some questions from staff members or partners that I've received via email, so I'll share those.
Okay.
So how can, we mentioned Narcan, how can folks access Narcan?
So there's several ways that folks can access Narcan. I think when I'm usually asked that question, I'm wondering, is this Narcan for you, for yourself, for someone else? Is this personal for the house? If it's coming from a partner, is this for your organization? And that would kind of depend on who I would direct them to. But North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition does regular Narcan distribution for people who use drugs in the community. You can get the contact information off the North Carolina Harm Reduction website for coordinators or outreach workers in your area to be able to get connected with someone that can bring out Narcan. But the health department can also be a resource. You can come into the pharmacy and get Narcan throughout the week. And if you are a community partner that's looking to perhaps get Narcan for your staff, you could reach out to myself directly, and we can maybe connect you depending on exactly what you need to the right resource.
And also we have a Narcan vending machine located in the Cumberland County court in the detention center.
Yeah.
In the detention centers, in the lobby is open to the public as well, but for people to come in and get Narcan.
Great. We had another question about the C4 meetings. So how can you attend? When is it? How can you be on C4?
So C4 meetings are the third Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. You can send an email. You can send an email out to myself requesting to get the link to the hybrid if you want to participate remotely, or you can come into the health department on the third floor to the boardroom and participate.
All right. There was mention of a Goshen clinic and wound care. When is the next one? Where's that located?
Well, 3427 Melrose Road is where it's located, and it's right now we have it scheduled bi-weekly. The next visit is actually on this Wednesday, and if you can, it would be helpful if you could go on the Goshen website and download the application that they have there, because it'll help speed up the process of you being seen. You have to fill out the paperwork, and once that paperwork is complete, or you can just stop by our office tomorrow prior to Wednesday to pick up those forms and fill them out as well. So.
Okay. There was mention of smart recovery groups or other support groups in the community. How can one get in contact with the smart recovery group for themselves or for individuals who are have family members who have substance use disorder?
So if you can go on to the Smart Recovery website and get a list of Smart Recovery meetings that are happening in your community. And so the ones that are in Cumberland County are listed on there. And this, I would say the same is true for 12 steps like AA and NA. Celebrate Recovery as well. Celebrate Recovery. They have Celebrate Recovery support groups every Monday night from 5 to 8 at Aaron Lakes Baptist Church. And so between Celebrate Recovery and 12 Steps AA, NA, and Smart Recovery, there are support groups happening daily in the county.
All right. So we know C4 is a collaborative initiative and is led by the health department. Are there any suggestions for employees or members of the health department to assist in the shared vision and goals? Like, what can they do?
Yeah, I would say that, collaborations are always, welcome, and sometimes different department missions kind of overlap and meet, and, and so when you see those sort of potential overlays, or if you're interested in collaborating, reach out, because collaboration is the key to everything that we do as a community coalition. And so we're always looking for willing partners. And if you don't necessarily have an idea in your head of what that collaboration looks like, let's brainstorm and figure it out together. We'll find a way.
I think one piece to add to that is every other Thursday, Fayetteville Police Department started an initiative we call Faith in Action.
Oh, yeah.
We all participate in that. I know the Broken Chains participates in that. They have the Celebrate Recovery. So it's a good way. This coming Thursday will be our next one. It's from 5 to 7. Usually it's an area that's been hit pretty hard by the opioid epidemic. I think it's changing this week, right?
Right.
So
I'll
look for that too.
Westwood.
Yeah, Westwood Shopping Center this Thursday.
Between 5 to 7.
And also I'd like to add that, participation, we have a couple of host of initiatives leading up to Recovery Awareness Month, Overdose Prevention Day in the community. We encourage, people to come out and support those things, educate themselves on, what, the different things that we're trying to do in the community. We're going to have an Operation Clean Sweep where we're going to be addressing syringe litter. We're going to need volunteers for that. There's a lot of things, and those things are going to be funneled through the C4 website, and so you'll be able to access events, calendar events, and whatnot. I know Carolina Treatment Center is going to have a whole Spirit Week of recovery awareness. We kind of focus on the people who are needing help the most, and sometimes we neglect people who are achieving recovery and being successful at that, and we don't celebrate them enough. So Recovery Awareness Month is an opportunity to do that. Celebrate your loved ones, celebrate people who are, achieving recovery and working at their recovery and whatnot. So stay tuned for those, and that stuff will be funneled through the Seaport website as well.
I have one more thing that I would like to add. As I was listening to them, you know, one of the other things that Seaport does is we work on destigmatizing substance use disorder as a whole, destigmatizing that word addiction to the point to where people don't get help or don't want to receive help because there's a negative connotation that comes with treatment. There's a negative connotation that comes with recovery. And so one of the things that NC Harm Reduction especially does is working on destigmatizing the need for and the ability to receive treatment. Listen, one of my biggest things is I don't use the word, and I'm going to use it just to say I don't use it, but I don't use the word addict because I believe that labels are for cans and not for people. And when we start labeling people, that's how we start to see them. But they were individuals that were loved by their family members and given a name. And we all have moments where we have lapses in the choices that we make. Unfortunately, their lapses lasted a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that that person that was given that name doesn't still exist in there. And so I think that one of the other great things that we do in C4, you've got people who believe in people and not in their addiction. That's the other great thing.
And I just want to add to in honoring people and showing love, there will be an overdose awareness day event that will be Thursday, August 31st from 5 to 7:30. That will be happening at Methodist University in the nursing building. There will be a Narcan kit making that'll be happening at 5 o'clock. They give opportunity to people that want to volunteer. You can come and volunteer and help put together life-saving Narcan kits that could be passed out by outreach workers that are doing Narcan distribution in the community. And then afterwards, we will have an opportunity to hold space for folks that have lost loved ones to overdose and addiction. We will have a place to put the pictures up. We'll have a microphone set up for folks to say the name of their loved one. We have some people that will be speaking and a candlelight visual to conclude the evening. And so if you are available on Thursday, August 31st from 5 to 7, we'd love to see you at the overdose awareness event.
And so finally, we just had a question to repeat some of the information. So for the Cumberland Fayetteville Opioid Response Team, or C4, again, that meeting is hybrid on the third Tuesday of each month from 10 a.m. until 11:30. It's hosted here at the Health Department in the third floor boardroom. But again, it's hybrid, so there is a virtual meeting option. And if you'd like the information for that and the calendar invite to be sent to you, you can email gberry@cumberlandcountync.gov. And that's also where you can find the recording of today's webinar. That'll be posted to the county's website, and that's cumberlandcountync.gov.
Yes. And thank you all so much for being here. The information that you guys gave is invaluable. And again, if you have questions, you need anything, please reach out to Greg.